Salutaters, my potats, it is I, Rave, and I am back with another episode of Read with Rave, a series in which I read books or short stories written by myself or by some of my friends. A couple of small disclaimers. Disclaimer number 1, I have already gotten permission from my friends to read their books or short stories so as to avoid copyright. That being said, I will have links to their social media down in the description below. Disclaimer number 2, these books and short stories are not meant for children. The average audience is teens or young adults, so if you are a young child, please jump off this video and return when I have gaming or art videos. Today, I will be reading The Crossroads Planet, Book 1 of the Crossroads series by Robert Field. Chapter 8. Crystal sat, a little nervously, in the outer chamber of Amber's rooms, which were above the dining hall. She had not spoken to Amber in a few days, save at the general introduction one breakfast, and she had heard many opinions at variance with Amber's, as well as pertinent facts about Amber that Amber had not mentioned. Amber appeared and led Crystal into the inner room. Amber began to speak steadily, and offered no pause for Crystal to speak. Crystal, child, it was not my wish that thee be enrolled at the college, but I was overruled by the deans. Though I be headmaster, all-powerful I am not. Also it seems that I am not infallible either. I had thought to arrange training for thee privately, and thus keep thee sheltered from the evil forces, until thee could be an effective countermeasure. As it is, news of thy arrival was spread, and thee may be in some danger. I have heard that thee's fallen in with this fellow Lance. I took his measure a year ago, and found him wanting in the extreme. He has gone from master to master, none entertaining high expectations for progress. Now he has yet another new master, but one who sees a spark where others see ashes. I am puzzled that skill should suddenly arise where there was none. It came to me that there might be a connection, since this emergence of some skill appears mightily well timed with thy arrival. Furthermore, word of some extracurricular activities performed by the two of you raises some suspicions in me. Nay, I am not accusing thee. I am satisfied that these were accidental occurrences, but it strikes me that these may lead to intentional exercises. I wish to caution thee, and for thee to caution Lance as well. The two of ye are untrained, and to attempt such without proper supervision would be folly. I wish to see the two of you re-evaluated, especially together. I believe thee may be facilitating him even as I facilitated thee, and I would like to know the measure of his new skills both with and without thy presence. Amber arose. Now, child, I wish to take thee to my workroom, that we may further assess your budding skill. And I wish you'd stop calling me child, thought Crystal. Amber drew back a tapestry to reveal a door set into an exterior wall, which, when opened, revealed a long sloping passage instead of the outdoors. Down this passage they went, emerging eventually in Amber's enormous underground workroom. As before, they proceeded to the top of the little tower in the center. Sit still a moment while I look at aught, said Amber, closing her eyes. A moment later they reopened, full of much surprise and a little anger. Thee is heart-bonded. This takes me by surprise, it does. Thy bonded is presumably none other than Lance? None other, replied Crystal. I have seen the bonds myself, and they lead straight to him. I saw no such thing when last we were here, the symptoms of newly formed bonds, much like newly found magic skill, yet heightened by the presence of the one who shares the bond. Chance thee to have felt tingling lightheadedness in thy gentleman's presence? Yes, mistress. We met at the feasting, before even I met you, and I distinctly recall feelings like you say, especially the times I was with him. We met. We were separated. We met again and danced. We were separated again. I didn't see him again until after my first lesson with you. We were together for hours that evening and went back to the college because the inn had closed for the evening. Thy tale, it is impossible. If what thee says is to be true, then thee would have had to bond with him the very first moment thee met him, and I should have seen it. Amber sighed. But there 'tis. I know I am getting old and resort to means magical to maintain my appearance, but my mind is clear and my skills are strong. Or are they? Child, thee raises grave doubts, but no matter. Let us begin some exercises. These will have to be modified somewhat since these got the two filaments of the heart bond permanently strung through thee. Some words of caution. Refrain from manipulating the threads that go from thee to Lance. If thee must manipulate either, manipulate them as they go away from Lance and not toward. Also, allowing the threads to cross can have unpredictable consequences. Amber paused. Now, child, begin. Grab a thread from the cloud and draw it to thee. Now let it go. Again the lessons proceeded at a rapid pace. Crystal was amazed at how much her skill had improved since the last lesson. Finally, Amber called a halt and led them down to the room at the base of the tower. Amber declined to provide tea, but Crystal did not feel near as drained as last time. Well, child, your skill has inexplicably improved. Unless thee has been practicing, perhaps unwittingly, can thee recall incidents of unexplained sensations or occurrences? Crystal blushed. Most of them revolve around Lance. She proceeded to detail the occurrences. The daydreams are really the most unexplained phenomenon. All others seem to be voluntary application of skills, even if I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. Only the levitation incident appears to have been willful use of power, and he was as much responsible as I. She looked thoughtful. The dreams didn't seem to be invocation of magic so much as a communication of thoughts and feelings between us. Mostly feelings. Well, child, I tend to agree with thee. Heart bonding only occurs between individuals with a strong magic skill, and even then, it is not common. Such communications appear to be normal for heart-bonded individuals. Generally, they occur in the absence of better conscious report. Likely, thee and he, being new to this, did not realize that if ye do not open your hearts to one another intentionally, such episodes will take place. One can also invoke these episodes by intention. Ye two will have to discover these for yourselves. I can't help thee there. Well, we'd best get thee back in time for lunch. I will communicate with Mistress Merriweather. As they walked the passage back, Crystal suddenly had a question. Mistress Amber, what caused the various levitation effects? Really, child, I cannot say offhand. When you go crossing lines like that, no telling what will happen. After lunch, Crystal went to Mistress Merriweather's rooms in the master's court, where a small number of students had gathered. The mistress stepped out of the inner room to address the bunch. I want to apologize for having to schedule this exercise section on Sunday, but since people will be transferring in and out of this section as I assess their skill levels and place them in more conventional settings as appropriate, days and times will tend to vary and may not always be the most convenient. From now on, the exercise section will meet in the designated practice area. We will go there directly. She went out of the room, and the students scrambled to follow. Crossing the lawn to the dining hall, she led the way through several passages, down some stairs, and into a long subterranean passage. It was cold, and the magic lighting did little to dispel the gloominess, providing just enough illumination for them to see their way. They eventually emerged on the south side of the river, where a large level area lay. A number of outbuildings were placed here and there. The mistress made for a small building which adjoined an area enclosed in a tall wooden fence. She opened a gate in the fence, shutting it after all had entered. Crystal looked around. She wondered what exactly got practiced here. The building turned out to be a shed opening into an enclosed yard. Around the side of the yard, and strategically within, bales of straw had been placed. The students sat along one section of the wall, while Mistress Merriweather stood to address them. This exercise section is a special one that I've set up. Most students of mine are in the other section. I know their talents and abilities well. I have placed them in groups where they will all be at the right level and pace. Now, you lot are a bit more of a mystery to me. Some of you are new, either to the college or to my class. Some of you have recently shown new talents which have not fully manifested, or have not been fully evaluated yet. So, while we will be starting with the most basic exercises, we will proceed at a rapid pace. Those of you who lag behind will be reassigned to another section. I have also placed a few more of my senior students here to help facilitate things. The mistress was all business as she opened the shed and extracted a few items contained within. All the objects that I use are ordinary non-magical items. I use them by way of illustration. First, I would like to give you a brief background on the spirit winds. These currents of magic power were apparently not in existence when the planet was first colonized, but began to manifest some 50 years later. They circle the planet, permeating both the air and the ground. They are affected by the planet's rotation in the same way the air is, so Coriolis forces have an effect. Notwithstanding the fact that they can permeate solid substances, they do seem to be affected by the geographical features of the planet. This is mainly due to the fact that what we call the spirit winds are in fact made up of individual strands, ropes, or threads of power. We call these filaments. There are several different types of these filaments. Each has its own characteristic, including color, thickness, and amount of energy passing through it, and what substance the filament prefers to inhabit. This is not to say that a filament will only be found in that substance. So, broadly speaking, there are filaments which prefer to travel through the air, through liquids, and through solids. In this geographic location, we have several major currents of the spirit winds. Airborne filaments travel the length of the valley, intersected by other currents which flow through the mountain passes. The river and its tributaries carry waterborne filaments down to the sea. Within the mountain ranges surrounding us, currents of solid inhabiting filaments travel along. This last sort seems to seek out geologic faults, tectonic plate borders, and other places of stress within the earth. But it is not my intention to stand here talking all afternoon. Every time we meet, I will supplement the regular lecture some, for at this point, some of that material may be beyond you. Eventually, you will be up to speed, and I will then dispense with the supplements. However, I still expect you to make note of the regular lecture material. Your notes will be ultimately of some use to you. Now, class, my assistant is going to increase the concentration of the spirit winds within these walls, and I want you all to close your eyes and concentrate on trying to see them. Crystal instantly slipped easily into spirit sight. This lesson, at least, she had already. She saw the two filaments running through her, noticing that the pair making their way to Lance was stretched taut, while the other side of her they writhed and swirled like an uncommitted threads. Other than these two threads, there were only a handful of other threads in the vicinity. Soon, however, a large cloud of filament started crowding into the vicinity, centering around one of the senior students that Mistress Merriweather had indicated would facilitate. Then the filaments began to accumulate energy, becoming thicker and brighter. Crystal was amazed at the amount of energy collecting into the space of the yard in such a short time. Eventually, the threads shrank, and for the most part dispersed. "Well, class, did anyone see anything?" she asked each student in turn, receiving a variety of responses from simple negative to descriptions as detailed as what Crystal saw. She gave her own report of what she saw, omitting only the mention of the filaments making up the heart bond with Lance. None of their damn business, she thought to herself. The rest of the afternoon was taken up with individual exercises, as well as demonstrations by the two senior students. Slightly bored, her thoughts drifted away from where she was, and she found herself sitting with Lance in their private dream glade. She looked at him, a little startled. He had a dreamy expression on his face, but the memory of Amber's words made the situation somewhat clearer for her. "Lance," she said simply, "it's good to see you, but I'm in class right now and ought be paying attention." It was Lance's turn to be startled. I didn't mean to intrude. I was just laying back on the sofa and thinking of thee. Don't apologize, my love. It is the way things are with us. Amber explained how this sort of thing generally works. Truly, I think it's wonderful that we can talk this way. We must practice later so we can do this at will. As long as we practice these dream states at a time of our choosing, then they will be less likely to come at embarrassing moments. Lance nodded. I hope that I remember all this when I wake up, or that Mistress Merriweather will explain it to me at some point. Just how much did thee tell Amber? I was fairly frank with her, and yes, you should remember all of this. I felt I had to be frank, especially if she is to properly advise me. Well, no harm done, I hope. I'm glad. Is there anything you want right now, or can I go back to class? Just this, he replied, and he gathered her in his arms and kissed her deeply. She broke away. That's enough for now, you lover, you. Now wake up, she shouted into his mind. The glade spun about and popped like a soap bubble. She opened her eyes and resumed her attention to the class, wondering how much she missed. Eventually, the class ended, and other students, for the most part, did not seem to catch on very quickly, giving Crystal an inkling of just how special her powers might be. Mistress Merriweather detained Crystal after class. I've been wanting to have a chat with thee, child. Thee's a mystery to a good many people around here. Amber has explained some about you, but I still have many questions. Crystal nodded. Maybe this would be a good time for me to mention a few things that I haven't a sufficient explanation for. Very well, Crystal. We shall briefly satisfy both our curiosities to a degree. Thee may speak freely. I know to be discreet. Crystal nodded. First of all, I am heart-bonded to another, Lance, my sweet mate. I have seen it myself, and Mistress Amber noticed it too, though not right away, but I am positive that the bond formed when we first laid eyes on each other, or when we first touched, at the latest. Yes, my dear, the eyes play a large role in a bonding. Look into the eyes of another who's right for thee, and thee may very well find thyself bonded, but only if both persons be magically inclined, and not already bonded. Mistress, please, dear, Merriweather be my use name. Any number of Marys around the college, but thee may call me Mary. Happens it's my real name, too. Crystal relaxed a little in the warmth of Mary Merriweather's presence. Mary, you do seem less remote than Mistress Amber. I mean no disrespect, but while your skills may have parted from you, your social graces haven't. Lance and I being bonded. Well, that changes everything, doesn't it? Well, Crystal, yes and no, dear. Magic be magic still, but thee and Lance will facilitate each other's magic. Mary looked thoughtful for a moment. I first sensed Lance's increased skills ere you two meeting first. However, thee was in the town. Both of ye have been seeking such a bond in thy hearts, both of ye looking for something more. Hearts like that cast around them, looking for a mate. The two of ye, no doubt yon hearts had picked one another out before ye even met. Yet it wasn't until that first look into his eyes that the bond was in place at last. The bond be tenuous unless and until ye really get acquainted. Then it becomes active. Before the time it drops lots of hints about itself, sensations, tingles. No doubt thee experienced these. Yes, especially when he was near. But the feasting constantly interrupted us, and it wasn't until a day later that we got uninterrupted chance to talk. He sought me out. Another sign of a forming bond. Either of ye eventually will try to seek out the other, except the rare circumstances where I have known the bond to lie dormant for over a year. 'Twas total agony for the couple, though. Pray, continue. And we talked all evening. After that we were inseparable, and then things began to happen between us. Ay, my dear, that they will. Mary looked thoughtful. Trust Amber to misread this one. I think I had better bring Lance into my special section as well. His responses were most disappointing in the other section. Thee and he are a team, and separating ye be folly. Thee may be skilled to work on thy own, but his skills derive a large part from thee. He may learn to work on his own time, but right now you two need each other. I'll make sure my graduate student aides know that too. Since I be old and feeble, magically anyway, I teach while they demonstrate and facilitate. Still, I don't trust them to read all the nuances of a heart bond. I can still read a heart bond, for I was bonded once. I outlasted my bondmate by a goodly number of years. Not all bondmates do. Many just pine away, but I was strong at the time. I spent a good bit of energy hanging on my wits during that period. Finally, I found a teaching position at the College of Magic, and my concern for my students has helped me since. Mary looked thoughtful. Amber, now, she's never had a true bond, though she's gone through several husbands. That is one reason why I don't trust her to read a heart bond right, whereas I can still detect such things. When I evaluated Lance before you two met, there was a large disturbance in the spirit winds within his vicinity. I am glad to say that it has settled down now that the two of ye are settled together. I can well understand thy disorientation on arriving in Crossroads. Not only magical talents, but a heart bond to boot. 'Twould make anyone a little bit daft. Mary rose up and offered a hand to Crystal. Mary briefly embraced Crystal. Fear not, child, I will be looking out for thee. I wish I could be assigned as advisor to thee as well as Lance, but I fear the deans think otherwise. I am perfectly willing to offer thee all the counseling thee may wish. Don't hesitate to seek me out, and I be available. Mary opened the door, and Crystal strode out. Crystal crossed the campus thoughtfully, heading for the students' quarters. She was fast concluding that she would seek out Amber only when officially required, and utilize Mary's counsel judiciously, but not sparingly. Crystal approached the suite. A soft breeze played along the corridor, and the door to the suite stood open. Softly, she crept into the room where Lance had leaned over a book at his desk. Stepping behind him, she kissed him softly on the top of his head and clasped her arms around him. He sighed and twisted to look up at her. Chris, my love, I did interrupt thy attention to thy class, didn't I? Yes, dearest, she murmured into his ear, but Merriweather understands. She straightened up and sat on the sofa. Lance joined her after shutting the door. We had a long talk after class. I have news for thee, my sweet. Mary wants you to be in the special section with me. Perhaps then we can do our daydreaming at other times. Mary wants to be my advisor, too, but the deans won't let her. Ah, campus politics, and thee treading a fine line between Amber and Mary. It will work out. Do listen to Mary. She's a fine instructor and can also be a wonderful friend. These dreams of ours now, seems like we take turns being practical and wishful. The dream states make it very easy to suspend logical thought and act on what your heart demands. It takes a strong will to think clearly and act responsibly. Both you and I can, and we both know it. But think twice about breaking my maidenhead while we're in a dream. I want to be conscious for that. Furthermore, it ought be a special occasion, at a time when nothing might interrupt it, and with ample time to fully open the channels between us. For I have noticed that even though the underlying bond be strong, our individual conditions play a large part in how well we interact at the moment. As you wish, dearest. Market day next, perchance? We can stay closeted in the suite until lunchtime, with a light snack in the room. Well, my darling? Crystal's heart leapt. Yes, she cried, and buried her head in his chest. Thank you for joining today's episode of Read with Rave. I apologize for my stumbling, but I'm working on reading better, so I appreciate your patience. If you liked, please comment down below if you want me to do more of these. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and don't forget to splash the bell icon so you never miss another video, and I will catch you all on the next wave. Bye!